I never thought my lowest moment would happen right in front of the man who'd change my life forever. That night, I wasn't just serving food. I was serving pieces of myself, shattered, tired, and desperate to survive another day. The bruises on my arm were still fresh, and my soul barely hanging on. I told myself, just make it through tonight, Lila. Smile. Take the orders. Pretend it doesn't hurt. But then he walked in. A man in a worn hoodie, quiet, unassuming. No one knew who he really was. Not even me. All I knew was that I spilled coffee on him, and my manager made me pay for it with more than money. That night, when I whispered, "Please, don't kick me. I'm already hurt," I thought it would end in humiliation. But I was wrong. Because that man, the stranger sitting at table 9, wasn't just another customer. He was the CEO, Undercover. And what he did next would turn my entire world upside down. My name's Lila, and if you've ever worked a double shift with shoes so cheap they bite your feet, then you already know the kind of pain I'm talking about. It was a Tuesday night, the kind where the rain beats harder than your own heartbeat, and the smell of fried onions clings to your skin like shame. I'd been working at Marty's Diner for almost 3 years, not because I loved it, but because I had nowhere else to go. My mom was sick. My little brother, Ty, needed school supplies. And me, I just needed to keep breathing. Lila, table 9's waiting. My manager, Carl, barked. He always barked. Never spoke. Never smiled. I grabbed the pot of coffee and plastered on my best fake grin. But when I reached the table, I froze. The man sitting there wasn't like the usual crowd, not the truckers, not the night shift workers. He had a calmness about him. His eyes looked tired, but sharp, like he saw too much and said too little. He wore a hoodie and jeans, nothing flashy, but something in the way he held himself felt expensive. "Coffee?" I asked softly. He looked up. "Please." That voice, steady, kind, caught me off guard. When I poured his coffee, my hand trembled. I was exhausted, dizzy, and then the cup slipped. The coffee splashed across his sleeve. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Before I could finish, Carl's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Lila, what did you do now?" He stormed over, grabbed my arm so hard I almost dropped the pot again. "You useless girl. Can't you do one thing right?" The entire diner went silent. I could feel my cheeks burning. The stranger just watched, calm but unreadable. "Please, Carl, I'll clean it up," I stammered. "It was an accident." Carl's face twisted in disgust. "You'll clean it, all right. And you'll pay for the ruined shirt too." He shoved me toward the floor with a rough push. My knees hit the tiles. The sting shot up my legs. The mop bucket tipped. Coffee spread across the floor. And I whispered, barely audible, "Please, don't kick me. I'm already hurt." Carl froze, as if my words had reached some place in him he didn't want to acknowledge. But then he smirked. "Then get up and prove you're not." I felt my tears burn, but I held them back, because crying never helped. Not in this world. But what I didn't know was that someone else did care. The man at table 9 was watching every second, and the quiet fire in his eyes wasn't pity. It was fury. He stood up slowly, walked toward Carl, and said something that made the diner go dead silent. "Is this how you treat your staff?" Carl frowned. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger reached into his pocket, wiped the spilled coffee off his sleeve, and handed me a napkin before answering. just someone who believes she deserves better than this. And that moment, that single act of quiet defense, was the start of everything. I didn't even know his name yet. All I knew was that this man, this quiet stranger from Table 9, had just stood up to Carl in front of everyone. No one ever did that. The diner was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the corner and the soft rain outside. Carl laughed bitterly, breaking the tension. "Oh, so you're her savior now? Buddy, stay out of it. She's clumsy, always has been." But the man didn't flinch. His calmness made everyone else uncomfortable. He looked straight at Carl and said, "You know, I've been here 3 nights this week. I've watched how you talk to your staff, especially her." My eyes widened. He'd been watching? Carl's smug expression faltered. "You some kind of inspector?" The man smiled slightly. "Something like that." Then he turned to me, his voice gentle again. "Are you okay, Lila?" No one had said my name softly in a long time. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Why, yes, sir. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was shaking inside, because I knew what would happen the moment he left. Carl would make me pay for this, in ways that left no bruise but hurt all the same. When the man sat back down, Carl muttered something under his breath and stormed off toward the kitchen. I cleaned up the mess quietly, but my mind was spinning. Who was he? When I looked at his coffee, I noticed something odd. A black credit card on the table, half hidden under a napkin. The kind of card you only saw in commercials. No name, just a metallic sheen. I pretended not to notice, but a part of me wondered, why would someone like him come to a rundown diner like this? That night, when my shift ended, I stepped out into the cold rain. My uniform clung to me, my shoes squelched with every step. I didn't expect anyone to be outside, but he was, leaning against a black car parked under the flickering streetlight. He straightened when he saw me. "Need a ride?" I froze. "You don't have to." "I insist," he said softly. "It's not safe out here." I hesitated, but something about his voice, steady, respectful, made me nod. Inside the car, the silence was thick but not uncomfortable. After a few minutes, he spoke. "Does he always treat you like that?" I stared out the window. "It's not just me. Everyone gets it. But I need this job." He nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have to live like that." I smiled weakly. "That's life for some of us." Then he said something that made my heart stop. "What if I told you it doesn't have to be?" I turned to him. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black business card. He handed it to me. It read, "Ethan Cross, CEO, Cross Industries." My jaw dropped. Cross Industries. The company that owned the diner franchise. The same company that signed my tiny, miserable paycheck every month. I stared at him in disbelief. You own Marty's." He nodded. "I've been visiting different branches for weeks, unannounced. I wanted to see how the staff were treated when management didn't know I was watching." My stomach churned. "And now you've seen." "Yes," he said quietly. "I've seen enough." Then his voice softened. "And I've seen you, Lila. You work harder than anyone there. You shouldn't be afraid to breathe." Tears welled up in my eyes before I could stop them. "You don't understand. I can't afford to lose this job." He looked at me for a long moment. "Then maybe it's time you had a better one." The next morning, everything exploded. Carl came in shouting about a corporate audit. Men in suits walked through the diner, inspecting everything. Employees whispered, watching in fear. By noon, the announcement came. Carl was fired on the spot for harassment and misconduct. And me, Ethan, Mr. Cross, walked into the diner with the calm confidence of a man who didn't need to prove anything. Everyone froze as he walked straight to me. "Lila," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I'd like you to come with me. There's a position waiting at our head office." I blinked. Head office. He smiled. "Assistant manager, starting today." I gasped. The other waitress's jaws dropped. Carl looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. And right there, in front of everyone who'd watched me struggle, Ethan said the words I'd never forget. "You treated her like she was invisible. But she's the reason your customers came back. People like her are the heart of this company." Then he turned to me, his voice soft again. "No one's ever going to kick you down again, Lila. Not while I'm around." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of excitement, but because it felt unreal. Me, Lila Green, the clumsy, broke waitress from the corner diner, now had a job offer at the head office of one of the biggest companies in the city. I kept turning Ethan's business card over in my hand, staring at his name like it might disappear. But it didn't, and neither did the memory of his words. "No one's ever going to kick you down again." For the first time in years, I wanted to believe someone meant it. The next morning, I arrived at Cross Industries headquarters, 20 stories of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. I felt like an imposter the second I walked through the doors. Everyone there was dressed in designer suits. I wore the best thing I owned, a thrift store blouse and scuffed black flats. Still, Ethan met me in the lobby himself. He smiled. "Welcome to your new beginning, Lila." I tried to smile back, but my voice trembled. "Mr. Cross, I don't think I belong here. I'm not." He raised a hand gently. "Stop. You've already earned this. You showed kindness, patience, and strength when no one was watching. That's what I value most." I swallowed hard. No one had ever spoken to me like that. As days turned into weeks, I learned everything: scheduling, customer service, handling reports. And Ethan, he became more than a boss. He was my safe place. He always noticed when I skipped lunch, when I looked tired, or when I smiled through pain. One afternoon, he caught me rubbing my wrist, the spot where Carl had grabbed me that night. "You're still hurting, aren't you?" he asked quietly. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. "Just old pain. It'll fade." But he didn't look convinced. His gaze softened. "Pain doesn't fade, Lila. It just hides until someone finally helps you carry it." Something in his tone broke me, because it wasn't just sympathy, it was familiarity. Like he knew what pain felt like. That was the first time I wondered what he was hiding. One evening, long after everyone else had gone home, I walked into his office to drop off a report, and stopped. Ethan was sitting at his desk, staring at an old photograph. His face looked broken. He didn't hear me come in. The picture showed a young woman in a waitress uniform, smiling brightly, arm around a little boy. The same diner logo I once wore was printed on her apron. "Is that your family?" I asked softly. He startled, quickly setting the photo down. But then he sighed. "You weren't supposed to see that." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's okay," he interrupted gently. He leaned back, eyes distant. "That was my mother. She worked at Marty's diner. One just like yours." My heart sank. Your mom? He nodded slowly. She raised me alone. White double shifts, same as you. She used to come home so tired she could barely walk. But she never complained. Until one night. His voice broke. She came home late. Her manager had screamed at her, humiliated her in front of everyone. She said it was fine. He paused, swallowing hard. The next morning, she didn't wake up. Silence. Just the soft hum of the city outside. I felt tears blur my vision. Oh, Ethan. He nodded. That's why I started this company. I wanted to build something where people like her, like you, would be treated with dignity. But somewhere along the way, I lost touch with what was happening at the ground level. That's why I went undercover. I needed to see it for myself. And now it all made sense. The hoodie, the late night visits, the way he looked at me like I reminded him of someone. I guess that's why you helped me, I whispered. He smiled faintly. You didn't just remind me of her, Lila. You reminded me that kindness still exists in a world that keeps trying to crush it. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. And that's when he said something I'd never forget. You don't have to keep fighting alone anymore. From that day forward, my life truly began to change. Ethan made me his personal assistant, not out of pity, but trust. He taught me everything about leadership, not just business, but how to see people. And soon, the staff began to change too. New policies were introduced. Every employee had a voice. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about respect. But then, just when I thought the past was behind me, someone walked into my life again. Someone who would test everything Ethan and I had built and reveal a dark secret I didn't know I was hiding too. It had been 3 months since I started working for Ethan. 3 months since my life had gone from broken tips and bruised pride to polished floors and boardroom meetings. I was learning to stand tall again, to breathe without fear. But sometimes, late at night, when the office lights dim and the city went quiet, I'd still hear echoes of my old life. The shouting, the apologies that meant nothing, the sound of a slammed door. Because pain has a way of following you, even when you think you've outrun it. And that night, it caught up to me. It started as a normal evening. Ethan had just finished a meeting, and I was collecting papers from his desk. He looked tired, but he still gave me that soft smile, the one that made me forget, for a moment, that I used to be invisible. Go home, Lila, he said. You've done enough for today. I'll just finish these reports, I replied, smiling. I don't mind. He nodded. All right, but text me when you get home, okay? That was Ethan, gentle, protective, thoughtful in ways that words couldn't capture. But when I finally stepped outside, the night felt different. Colder, heavier. A black car was parked across the street, engine idling. I tried to ignore it. City streets were full of cars. But when I reached the bus stop, I heard a voice that froze my blood. Well, if it isn't little Lila Green. My bag slipped from my hand. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Mark, my ex, the man who'd made me believe pain was normal. He stepped closer, his smile twisting in the dim streetlight. Didn't expect to see me again, did you? My throat tightened. What are you doing here? He shrugged. Heard you got yourself a fancy new job. Thought I'd come congratulate you. Leave, Mark, I said quietly. Please. He laughed, the same cruel sound that used to fill my apartment at night. You still talk soft. Guess some things never change. I tried to back away, but he grabbed my wrist. The same wrist Carl once bruised. The same wrist Ethan had noticed me rubbing weeks ago. "Don't touch me," I whispered. "Oh, what?" he sneered. "Your rich boyfriend gonna save you." I didn't even realize Ethan had followed me out of the building until I heard his voice, sharp, calm, dangerous. "Let her go." Mark turned, startled. "And who the hell are you?" Ethan stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Someone who doesn't tolerate cowards." Mark scoffed, tightening his grip. "You think you can tell me what to?" Before he could finish, Ethan's hand was already on his wrist. In one quick, controlled motion, he twisted it free and pulled me behind him. "Touch her again," Ethan said quietly, "and I promise you'll regret it." Mark stumbled back, clutching his arm. "You'll pay for this, both of you," he shouted, before storming off into the night. Ethan turned to me, concern flooding his face. "Are you okay?" I tried to speak, but my voice broke. The tears I'd been holding for years finally fell. He reached out slowly, as if afraid to hurt me, and pulled me into his arms. For the first time, I didn't flinch. Later, he drove me home in silence. The hum of the car filled the space between us, but it wasn't empty. It was safe. When he parked outside my apartment, I finally found my voice. I thought I'd gotten away from him. "You have now," he said firmly. "I'll make sure of it." I looked at him, really looked, and saw something roar in his eyes. Something deeper than protection. "Ethan," I whispered, "why do you care so much?" He hesitated. Then his jaw tightened. "Because I know what it feels like to watch someone you care about get hurt, and not be able to stop it." I frowned softly. "Your mom?" He nodded. "I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to help someone like her again, I wouldn't stand by and do nothing." Silence stretched between us, heavy and tender all at once. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "You're not just someone I helped, Lila. You've become someone I can't stop thinking about." My breath caught, because those words, they were the very ones I'd been too afraid to say myself. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. "You think he can protect you? He doesn't know what you've done." My heart stopped. Mark. He wasn't gone. And he knew something I thought I'd buried years ago. I looked up at Ethan, fear flickering in my eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked. I hesitated. "There's something I never told you." He turned the engine off and faced me fully. "Then tell me now. No more secrets, Lila." But before I could speak, the street light above us flickered out, plunging us into darkness. A shadow moved near the alley, and I realized this wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face, that cold smile, the message, the shadow in the alley. But it wasn't just fear. It was shame. Because he was right. There was something I'd never told Ethan. Something no one in my new life knew. And if the truth came out, it could destroy everything. The next morning, I went into work early, hoping to hide behind spreadsheets and silence. But Ethan noticed the moment he walked in. "Lila," he said softly, "you look like you haven't slept." "I'm fine," I lied. He leaned against my desk, studying me. "You're trembling." I swallowed hard. "Ethan, there's something I should have told you before. About my past." His tone changed, gentle but firm. "Then tell me now." I hesitated. My fingers twisted nervously. I wasn't just a waitress at Marty's diner, I said quietly. Before that, I was arrested. Ethan's expression didn't change, not judgment, not shock. Just quiet attention. For what? I looked down. For defending myself. It happened 2 years ago. Mark had always been controlling, but that night, he snapped. He came home drunk, accusing me of cheating, of talking to another man at the store. When he hit me, I didn't cry. I just grabbed the nearest thing I could, a glass ashtray, and threw it. It shattered against his forehead. Blood spilled. I thought I'd killed him. The neighbors called the police. When they arrived, I was covered in bruises, shaking, trying to explain. But he told them I attacked him, and I didn't have the strength to fight it. So they took me away in handcuffs. A 3-month sentence. Community service. A record that never truly fades. When I finished, I couldn't bring myself to look at Ethan. I didn't tell you because I thought you'd see me the way everyone else did, a broken girl who made bad choices. He was silent for a long time, the kind of silence that made my heart ache. Finally, I heard his chair move. Then, gently, he placed his hand over mine. "Lila," he said softly, "you don't have to apologize for surviving." I looked up, tears burning. You defended yourself. You lived through hell and still got up every morning to help others. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you the strongest person I know. My breath hitched. I hadn't realized how badly I'd needed someone to say that. He continued, his voice low, full of something raw and real. You're not your past. You're what you chose to become after it tried to destroy you. And right then, I knew Ethan wasn't just my savior. He was my mirror. The part of me that still believed in light after darkness. But peace didn't last. By noon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Same threat. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a photo. A grainy shot of me leaving Ethan's car last night, and another of him holding me when Mark attacked. Below it, a line that sent chills through me. The board would love to see how their CEO spends his nights with an ex-con. I felt my chest tighten. No. Ethan saw my face and immediately took the phone from my shaking hands. His eyes darkened as he read it. "Mark," he muttered. "He's trying to blackmail you." I nodded weakly. "If this leaks, you'll lose everything, Ethan. Your reputation, your company." He stepped closer, his voice steady. "Then let him. You're worth more than my reputation." My tears fell freely now. "Why are you doing this for me?" He met my gaze. "Because you deserve someone who fights for you, not against you." That night, Ethan arranged a meeting with his security team. He wouldn't let me go home alone, so he brought me to his penthouse, a place that felt like it belonged to another world entirely. The city lights shimmered below us, but all I could see was the reflection of fear in the window. Mark wasn't just threatening my past. He was threatening the one man who'd finally given me a future. I turned to Ethan. "He's not going to stop, is he?" Ethan shook his head. "Not until we stop him." "We?" He smiled faintly. "You're not alone in this anymore, Lila. Whatever it takes, we face it together." And as his hand found mine, I realized something I never thought I'd feel again. Hope. But little did we know, Mark had already made his next move, because the next morning, Ethan's name would be all over the news, and the headline would change everything. Morning came with the sound of chaos, not from the streets, but from my phone. It wouldn't stop buzzing. Dozens of missed calls, notifications. Then, One text from a coworker at the diner that made my stomach drop. Lila, turn on the news. Now. My hand shook as I reached for the remote. And there it was, the morning headline flashing across the screen like a wound. Undercover CEO in scandal. Secret relationship with former convict waitress exposed. My entire world tilted. Ethan's face filled the screen. That calm, confident man who'd saved me, now plastered beside my mugshot from 2 years ago. The reporter's voice cut through the air like a knife. Sources allege that Ethan Cross, CEO of Cross Industries, has been romantically involved with an employee who served time for assault. The board is demanding an immediate investigation. I couldn't breathe. Ethan walked into the room moments later, his expression grim, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, I've seen it, he said tightly. No, don't make a statement yet. We'll handle it. When he hung up, he looked at me, and despite the chaos around him, his voice was calm. They moved fast, he said. Too fast. This was planned. I nodded weakly. Mark. He nodded once. He leaked it. The guilt hit me hard. Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. He stepped closer, shaking his head. No, he did this to hurt me, through you. You are not the problem, Lila. He is. But his phone rang again, sharp and insistent. He answered, listened, then said quietly, understood. When he hung up, his jaw tightened. The board called an emergency session. They're suspending me pending review. My heart sank. Suspending you? Ethan. It's temporary, he said softly, but I could hear the exhaustion behind his calm. They'll investigate everything, including us. I felt my knees weaken. Including us. He reached out, brushing a tear from my cheek. They'll dig into your past, Lila. They'll twist it, spin it, make it ugly. But you have to promise me something. What? Don't hide. Don't disappear. That's what they want. His eyes, those kind, steady eyes, held mine like an anchor. Let them see who you really are. By afternoon, reporters swarmed outside the headquarters. I couldn't even leave the building without microphones shoved in my face. Lila, did you manipulate the CEO? Were you romantically involved during your employment? Do you regret hiding your criminal record? Each question cut deeper than the last. By the time Ethan found me, I was shaking behind the elevator doors, clutching my badge like it was the only thing keeping me standing. He reached for my hand. Come with me. Where? Somewhere they can't touch you. He drove us out of the city, past the noise, the flashing cameras, the lies, until we reached a quiet lake surrounded by trees. The same place, he said, where his mother used to take him as a boy when life got too heavy. We sat in silence for a long time. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying the smell of rain and ice. Finally, I spoke. Ethan, I can't let you lose everything because of me. He turned to me. You didn't make me lose anything. You reminded me why I built all this in the first place. Tears welled up. But you're bored. Can replace me, he interrupted softly. They can't replace what's right. Then his voice broke, raw and honest. I'd rather lose my company than lose myself. And I'd rather lose both than let them destroy you. My chest tightened, because I realized Ethan Cross wasn't just protecting me anymore. He was fighting for me, and I couldn't let him stand alone. That evening, I did something no one expected. I called a reporter, the same one who'd run the story. When she answered, I said quietly, You got part of it wrong. You forgot to mention that the man you're dragging through the mud is the same man who saved dozens of employees from abuse, including me. There was silence on the line. Then I continued, voice trembling but steady. Right that he went undercover to protect people like me. Right that he fired the manager who humiliated me. Right that he gave me a second chance when no one else would. My heart pounded. And right that I don't regret a single thing. 2 days later, a follow-up story broke. Waitress speaks out, the truth behind the CEO's secret investigation. Public opinion shifted almost overnight. People began to see Ethan not as a scandal, but as a man who cared enough to see the truth from the bottom up. The board reinstated him a week later, and when he walked back into that office, he did so with me by his side, not as a secret, but as someone who'd earned her place there. When the reporters shouted questions again, Ethan finally turned to them, his hand brushing mine. "She's not a scandal," he said calmly. "She's proof that compassion still has a place in business." Then he looked at me and smiled softly. "And in life." That night, we went back to the diner where it all began. The same flickering neon lights, the same smell of coffee. Only this time, when I walked in, people stood to greet me. No one sneered. No one whispered. Even the waitress at the counter smiled. "Hey, aren't you the girl from the story?" I smiled back. "Yeah, but I'm not just that girl anymore." When we left, rain started to fall again, soft, cleansing, like a full circle moment. Ethan reached for my hand, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. He looked at me, his eyes glinting beneath the streetlight. "You know, Lila, when you said please, don't kick me. I'm already hurt. You had no idea what those words would do." I smiled through my tears. "What did they do?" He stepped closer. "They reminded me what it means to feel." And as we walked away, hand in hand, drenched but free, I realized something. Sometimes the people who've been kicked the hardest are the ones who rise to lift everyone else. Because pain doesn't just break you. It rebuilds you stronger, wiser, unshakably human. And for the first time, I wasn't just Lila the waitress. I was Lila, the woman who learned that love doesn't rescue you. It sees you. They kicked me when I was already down. But what they didn't know is that the girl they broke once would rise again, loved, seen, and stronger than ever. Pause, heartbeat sound. Never judge someone by where they work, because one act of kindness can change everything.